Now all things smile, only my love doth lore, nor hath the scalding noonday sun the power to melt that marble ice, which still doth hold her heart congealed, and makes her pity cold. As February rolls into April, we see the snow melt and the grass peek out underneath. The once quiet mornings are now filled with birds singing to one another. The dead plants thaw from the frozen earth and bloom into something beautiful. Spring is a time of rebirth as summer is right on its tail. The Late Wisconsin Spring by John Koth. Snow melts into the earth and a gentle breeze loosens the damp gum wrappers, the stale leaves left over from autumn, and the dead brown grass. The sky shakes itself out, and the invisible birds, winter put away, somewhere return. The air relaxes, people start to circulate again in twos and threes. The dominant feelings are the blue sky and the year, memories of other seasons and the billowing wind. The light gradually altering from difficult to clear as a page melts and a photograph develops in the backyard. When some men came to tear down the garage across the way, the light was still clear, but the salt intoxication was already dissipating into the atmosphere of constant day April brings, between the isolation and the flowers. Now the clouds are lighter, the branches are frosted green, and suddenly the season that has seemed so tentative before becomes immediate. So clear the heart breaks, and the vibrant air is laced with crystal wires leading back from hell. Only the distraction and the exaggerated sense of care here at the heart of spring. All year long these feelings alternatively wither and bloom, while a dense abstraction hides them. But now the mental dance of solitude resumes, and life seems smaller, placed against the background of this story with the empty moral quality of an expansive gesture made up out of trees and clouds and air. The loneliness comes and goes, but the blue holds, permeating the early leaves that flutter into the sunlight as the air dances up and down the street. Some kids yell. A white dog rolls over on the grass and barks once. And although the incidents vary and the principal figures change, once established, the essential tone and character of a season stays inwardly the same day after day, like a person's. The clouds are frantic. Shadows sweep across the lawn and up the side of the house. A dappled sky, a mild blue watercolor light that floats the tense particulars away as the distraction starts. Spring here is at first so wary, and then so spare that even birds act like strangers, trying out the strange air with a hesitant chirp or two, and then subsiding. But the season intensifies by degrees. While the colors deepen out of memory, the flowers bloom, and the thick leaves gleam in the sunlight of another city, in a past which was almost faded into heaven. And even though memory always gives back so much more of what was once there when the mind initially thought it could hold, where will the separation and the ache between the isolated moments go when summer comes and turns all this into a garden? Spring here is too subdued. The air is clear with anticipation. But the real strength lies in the quiet tension of isolation and living patiently, without atonement or regret. In the eternity of the plain moments, the nest of care, until suddenly, all alone, the mind is lifted upward into light air and the nothingness of the sky, held there in that vacant, circumstantial blue, until in the feminines of a landscape where all the colors disappear. The quiet absolution of the spirit quickens into fact, and then into death. But the wind is cool. The buds are starting to open up on the trees. Somewhere up in the sky, an airplane drones. As Earth comes alive during spring, so do we. The long darkness of winter has passed, and we welcome spring with open arms. Nothing feels as great as the warm sunlight on your skin after the cold has embraced us for many long months. The Spring by Thomas Carew. Now that the winter is gone, the earth has lost her snow-white robes And now no more the frost candies the grass, or casts an icy cream upon the silver lake or crystal stream. But the warm sun thaws the benumbed earth, and makes it tender, gives a sacred birth to the dead swallow, wakes in hollow tree, the clumsy cuckoo, and the humble bee. Now do a choir of chirping minstrels bring in triumph to the world the youthful spring. The valleys, hills, and woods in rich array welcome the coming for the longed-for May. Now all things smile, only my love doth lore, nor hath the scalding noonday sun the power to melt that marble ice, which still doth hold her congealed, and makes her pity cold. The ox, which lately did for shelter fly, into the stall doth now securely lie. In open fields, and love no more is made by the fireside, but in the cooler shade. Amyntas now doth in this chlorous sleep under a sycamore, and all things keep time with the season. Only she doth carry June in her eyes, and in her heart January. April showers bring May flowers. Though the arrival of spring is something to celebrate, we must first embrace the long, steady downfalls of rain that breathe life into those plants around us. Because we cannot enjoy the spring flowers without a little rain and gloom. Rain by Frances Pong. The rain, in the backyard where I watch it fall, comes down at different rates. In the center, a fine discontinuous curtain or network falls implacably, and yet gently it drops that are probably quite light. A strengthless precipitation, an intense fraction of the atmosphere at its purest. A little distance from the walls to the right and left plunker heavier drops, one by one. Here they seem about the size of grains of wheat, the size of a pea, while elsewhere they are as big as marbles. Along gutters and window frames, the rain runs horizontally, while depending from the same obstacles, it hangs like individually wrapped candies. Along the entire surface of a little zinc roof, under my eyes it trickles in a very thin sheet, a pattern formed by the varying currents created by the imperceptible bumps of the surface. From the gutter it flows with the restraint of a shallow creek until it tumbles out into a perfectly vertical net, rather imperfectly braided, all the way to the ground where it breaks and sparkles into brilliant needles. Each of its forms has a particular allure and corresponds to a particular pattern. Though they share the intensity of a complex mechanism as precise as it is dangerous, like a steam-powered clock whose spring is wound by the force of precipitation. The ringing on the ground of the vertical trickles, the glug-glug of the gutters, the minuscule strikes of the gong multiply and resonate all at once in a concert without monotony and not without a curtain of delicacy. Once the spring unwinds itself, certain wheels go on turning for a while, more and more slowly, until the whole mechanism comes to a stop. It all vanishes with the sun. When it finally reappears, the brilliant apparatus evaporates. It has rained. And by far the best part of spring is the wildlife returning to enjoy the long, warm days to come. Butterflies fill our skies and gardens, reaping the harvest of the flowers in bloom. Their return shows just how alive the earth has become as everything around us warms up. We love you, spring. We love everything you give us. We will rejoice in your arrival once again. Let the butterflies bring smiles to the faces of all of us around. Monarchs, Viceroys, and Swallowtails by Robert Heaton. For years they come tacking in, full sail, riding the light down the trees, over the rooftops, and not just the monarchs, but viceroys, swallowtails, so many, they become unremarkable, showing up as they did whether we notice them or not, swooping and fanning out at the bright margins of the day. So how do we know until it was too late, until they quit coming, that the flowers in the flower beds would close their shutters, and the birds grow so dull they'd lose their power to sing. And how later, after the river died, others would follow, admirals, buckeyes, all going off like some lavish parade into the great overcrowded silence. And no one bothered to tell the trees they wouldn't be coming back anymore. The huge shade trees where they used to gather, every last branch and leaf sagging under the bright freight of their wings.